Hello, Amy Elizabeth, somatic and intuitive healer here, and it is the 30th of December 2022, and we are certainly in the mainstream collective moving toward this year end. We've got to make our resolutions and we've got to do all the things um, that people like to do this time of year, and that is great. We also know, for all of us who have been doing these for a few years, that most people's New Year's resolutions fail within the first 3 months or the first calendar quarter of a new calendar year. And so, one of the things I want to touch in about today is a different perspective around what is the new year, and just really bringing into focus the ways in which the bigger cosmic energies are asking us to not do. This is a calendar shift time of not doing, of not making resolutions right now, of not adding things to our plates. Um, and so we're going to look at that from a few lenses. We're going to visit that astrologically and we're going to visit that shamanically. So, the first thing I want to look at is today, Jupiter moved off the world point, which it has been on since the 20th of December. So, it spent a good almost a full 10 days. It spent 9 days on the world point. And Jupiter brings expansion. It's asking us, inviting us really to have a bigger view than just ourselves, have a bigger view than just what we have been taught or told is the way it is. With Jupiter moving off that world point and starting his time period in Aries for the year, we're going to get to revisit the little dip he had into Aries in 2022, and that expansion of that bigger view. I loved that it happened during the holiday season when people were coming together with families, asking us to, of course, think galactically, act locally. Now, as we move into this shift over of 2022 to 2023, I'm going to call that linear time because that's a calendar year, and it is a construct of humans to help us grasp space time, that we have just eked it down to this little skinny, narrow thing where time marches in one direction on one line, and it is as narrow and small as we can make it. And we have it on a calendar system that shifts on December 31st to November 1st, and we shift our years during that time. And so we're moving from 2022 to 2023, and we have a cultural narrative that now we're going to make a bunch of resolutions. We're going to add a bunch of stuff to our plates. We're going to shift our habits, and we're going to create or plant something new. Now, as an astrologer, I study Hellenistic astrology, which was created and practiced in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the Northern Hemisphere, on January 1st, it is cold. It is not the time to plant anything. And so I just want to invite you to start to wonder, how often have you tried to plant something on January 1st that has not sustained? And is it possible that the timing has been completely off? Now is not the planting time. The ground here, at least where I live in Minnesota, is frozen. It is cold. It snowed again last night. And for much of the Northern Hemisphere, this is a time where our fields are resting. So here's a little bit of the shamanism piece of this, is if we are looking at the calendar year, or even the astrological year, which is what I personally run on, is an astrological year. This is the period of a medicine walk that we consider the north. This is the time when we are resting. when we're going inward, when we're connecting with our past ancestors. And when I say past, I mean no longer on the planet. You can absolutely connect with your ancestors that are on the planet as well. But plugging in and connecting with the ancestors that have gone to work on being able to incorporate their wisdom, being able to heal the pieces of us that maybe weren't ready to heal in prior years. This is a point shamanically where we're not meant to plant, we're meant to rest, we're meant to turn inside, we're meant to find quiet and introspection, and we're not meant to be putting energy towards expanding or growing or planning or making things bigger, because this is the end of the astrological year where we're being asked to wrap up the things that we've been working on. And yes, some projects take longer than a year. Um, and some of those projects take longer than a year because they're not aligned and they're not meant to be. If we look at the cosmos right now, we've got Uranus in Taurus, Mars in Gemini, and Mercury in Capricorn, who are all retrograde as we move into this new calendar year. Now, these three energies being retrograde, two of them in earth signs, are asking us, especially Mars, to not do. Mars in Gemini is asking us to collect perspectives beyond our own, to be able to look at things from somebody else's viewpoint, to learn enough and get curious enough. Gemini is a really curious sign when it's in its light. It's indecisive and kind of flighty when it's in its shadow. And when it's in its light, it's curious and it wants to understand all of the other perspectives, not just its own. So Mars is there asking us to take action, inviting us to take the action to act as that hummingbird, to act as that butterfly, moving out and gathering information, gathering perspective, gathering a new way of seeing things that maybe we haven't investigated before. Now, Mars is been retrograde since October 30th, and he went retrograde at 25 degrees. Now, this is for those of you that know your charts a little bit. And if you don't know your charts, reach out, set up an astrology reading. We'll get it figured out. Mars turned retrograde on October 30th, 2022 at 25 degrees of Gemini. He has been moving backwards and he will continue to move backwards until January 12th, 2023. Well, he will be at 8 degrees of Gemini. So from the time he hit 8 degrees of Gemini until 25 degrees of Gemini, that was his pre-retrograde shadow. He turned retrograde at 25, has been moving backwards since, asking us to relook at those things. So for those of you that journal, this is a great opportunity to get out your journal and see what kind of things you were being invited to have a different perspective on, to meet in a different, fresh way, to look at differently, to move with differently. Mars is action, he is passion, he is desire, he's also loyalty. He may be a god of war, he is also originally a lover. So that passion and the desire is really a part of Mars's energy. And he is an action guy. He wants to get it done. In an air sign, he's having to think and slow down and not do the action part, but really have the energy of that coming from a headspace, a thinking space. What are my thoughts on this? How can I think about it differently? And it's not time to take action. Now, there are those of you with a natal Mars retrograde in your charts. This probably feels really good to you, and you are busy taking action, doing the things, because Mars only goes retrograde about a little over every 2 years. I'm sorry, every year and a quarter. And then he stays in a sign, really digging in, really asking us to review it, retrograde review deeply. And so he is there doing this. And those of you with the natal retrograde Mars are busy, busy people right now because this energy is native to you and it feels good. So, Mars, the god of action, is asking us to not do, to consider, to think, to look at fresh perspectives. Now, Uranus over in Taurus, number one, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. So, again, this is a great time to get out your journal and look at what revolutionary ideas, what different ways of thinking, what different ways of doing things have you been experiencing or maybe feeling a push toward since 2018? Uranus stationed retrograde, this retrograde in Taurus on August 24th. So you at 18 degrees. His he's a big guy. He doesn't move very fast. He is rolling through the cosmos on his side. So this is an 18 to 14 to 18, 18 to 14. So it's only this 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 5 degree movement. So it's tight. Those of you that were born in 77 or 78 are definitely feeling the push of your Uranus opposition, which is a massive, massive transit in the human lifetime. It is often culturally known as our midlife crisis. It is the time when we want to revolutionize how our life looks. And that's really what Uranus's energy is about. With him in Taurus, how are we relating to our resources differently? How can we revolutionize and relate to our earth resources differently? Taurus is an earth sign. Capricorn, where Mercury is retrograde, is also an earth sign. So this really is feeling like slow down, take some time. Don't make any changes right now. Don't make any commitment. Don't plant things. Be practical. Revisit your resources. Gather perspectives. Do things differently than you've ever done them before. And with Uranus retrograde asking us to revolutionize, I want to call on that energy to ask everybody to revolutionize by not making any New Year's resolutions in January. Instead, I want you to wait until April when the astrological new year happens. That is clearly springtime in the northern hemisphere. And that is when we start to work the soil to plant and do things differently. Shamanically, at that point, we're in the east. We're in a point of birth and growth and new things. So, with all of that in mind, Mercury, Capricorn, practical, down to earth communication, recognizing that the power of our words can build. So, really plugged into that. We've also got Pluto and Venus hanging out. Mercury is going to move over. He's stationing retrograde at 24 degrees, and then he's going to back up on the 18th of January. He is going to turn around. So Uranus, Mars, and Mercury all do station direct in January. Mars on the 12th, Mercury the 18th, Uranus the 22nd, and they're still going to be in their shadows. So give them time. Really invite in, what is it time for me to let go of right now? It's not time to build. You can plan, but don't be building. And recognize that by the time April rolls around, if you're really doing the work of releasing and letting go, you're going to have something completely different that comes onto your radar in April that is far, far more aligned for what you could be bringing in. So, click likes, leave me comments, share with your friends. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'll be moving more of my stuff just solely onto YouTube, and kind of leaving some of the big social media platforms is one of the things I am personally looking to release in 2023 in this first quarter as we move toward the astrological new year, which takes place on April 19th. Um, so questions, comments, dedications, requests, leave them for me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Sending you fierce love and a joyful, peaceful, safe transition.